Welcome to 843 TV. I'm your host, Annalisa Itkor.
And I'm Lisa Richardson.
And we are here today at the beautiful new Old Town Bluffton Inn. And we've got some fascinating guests today.
We sure do. We're going to be learning a lot. And first up, we have Charles Cousins. He's with the town of Hilton Head Island with the US 278 Gateway Corridor Committee.
And then we'll be chatting with Charlie Clark. She's the Vice President of Communications at the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber of Commerce.
And finally, to share all about this wonderful inn is Chelsea Thies. She's the Assistant General Manager.
So stick around. We've got a very interesting episode of 843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
.843 TV, where the Low Country comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak. Welcome to 843 TV. We are very lucky today to be at the absolutely gorgeous brand new Old Town Bluffton Inn here in downtown Bluffton in the historic area. And joining us today, first up, we have Charles Cousins with the town of Hilton Head Island. And we're talking about a subject today that all of us have heard about, a lot of questions, the US 278 Gateway Corridor Committee. Let's talk about that. Start with us to share what the committee is.
Well, the committee was created late last year to begin working with the DOT to figure out what kind of improvements are needed on the corridor to 278. The DOT regularly inspects bridges, and so when they inspected recently one of the bridges to Hilton Head, they found that it was nearing its end of useful life and needed to be replaced. But rather than just work on that one bridge, they decided to create a whole corridor to look at from Moss Creek on 278 to Spanish Wells Road on 278 and try and understand what could be done in that area to help with traffic congestion and reduce the impact of people that live along that roadway.
Going there daily for most of us, you see that as definitely that zone that's just congested right there, so it's absolutely needed.
I was going to say that's a committee my dad would have loved to have been on because he was always complaining about that. And speaking of that, in terms of the committee, how did you go about selecting people? How many people are on it? What are they doing as to be a part of the committee?
Right. There are 13 citizens on the committee that were appointed by our town council, like I said, late last year. They're made up of business leaders, they're made up of people who live in the communities along the corridor. They're made up of some engineers that understand traffic engineering and traffic improvements. They're made up of architects and people that can help with aesthetics along the corridor. And so they began meeting late last year and are beginning to, they began meeting last month. They're beginning to put their thoughts together and try and begin working the DOT on this issue.
Well, I love the fact that they're looking at it holistically. You know, that it's not just about the bridge, that it's about, we all know, we've traveled that road, we know it's about that whole corridor.
Well, yeah.
But I think there's always confusion of whose bridge is it? Is it who's responsible? And I know you have to work really closely with the state of South Carolina, don't you, on this?
Yes, the DOT owns that bridge. And interestingly enough, the bridge is not even in the town of Hilton Head, it's in the county. And so the town's limits actually end at the foot of the bridge on the island side. So it's a project that's going to involve a lot of coordination with the DOT, with the county, with the neighborhoods along that roadway.
Well, I think it's so smart though that the town and everybody understands it's not just there, so we all have to work together on it. We've all got to do something to alleviate the issue.
You know, and I like what you say about working together, because I would imagine another challenge that the committee is facing is every community is going to have their own thoughts, their own input about aesthetically what it should look like, and you know, do we have businesses along that corridor? It's going to be an interesting process for y'all.
Right. We have some neighborhoods along there. They're native island neighborhoods that have been there for 50, 60, 70 years. And we also have newer areas like Windmill Harbor, which have issues. So everybody has issues along that highway. We've got to figure out how to best address those issues.
Now, you're just in the beginning stages with the committee. Can you give us an idea of maybe what you expect the timeline to look like as far as seeing this thing out?
Well, the process involves the DOT undertaking an environmental assessment. And in doing that, they have to look at all the cultural, social, and environmental impacts along that roadway that improvements would have. And so they began that process on their own a little bit last fall. And that process is about a 2-year process. And so by late next summer 2020 or fall, we anticipate the DOT having arrived at a preferred alternative and moving forward to get that adopted and begin designing that project.
Gotcha.
Cool. So obviously we talk about the community as a whole. How do people learn more about this? Can they get involved?
I guess there are three ways, I guess. First of all, the town's a webpage. The town's webpage is HiltonHeadIslandSC.gov.
Okay.
There's a section on that webpage that is dedicated to this committee. Also, South Carolina DOT has a webpage about this one project.
Okay.
And it can
That's
be,
good.
you can find that at SCDOT278carter.com. And then additionally, this committee is meeting right now weekly, and so anyone can come to those meetings and hear the discussions and add to the discussions. Throughout this process, over the next 2 years, there will be public meetings, public hearings that people will be invited to, and those will be publicized in the newspaper and other ways.
You just said 2 years, so and it sort of answered the question in my mind. You know, is there a timeline on this? What is your end goal, and when do you hope to have that achieved?
I think the end goal for this committee is to provide input that's meaningful to the DOT on the alternative they're going to select to improve this corridor. And again, it would be sometime late next year, fall of next year probably.
Okay.
So we're in a sense several years out from seeing some construction.
Yes.
It's a big project.
And so once they
Yes.
once they get through next year, then they have to go through permitting processes, design. So it's a 4 or 5 year process before we see the first shovel of dirt being moved probably.
Well, it's pretty exciting to
Yeah.
see this beginning, and it's also exciting, I would imagine, from your point of view, because this all has to do with the growth of our area.
Absolutely.
Both, you know, from a tourism standpoint and from a full-time residential standpoint. So thank you. I'm sure this has actually just raised a lot of questions for people, so I'm glad they have the information on where they can go and learn more, and we will be back with more 843 TV in just a moment.